So I just like to ask questions like, what are your curiosities? What attracted you to want to come today?
Yeah, you said she was reading your mind. Yeah, I think there's a few things. One is this is the first time out of 3 babies that I've used a car seat like this. So I try to avoid actually getting it out of the car. Normally I just have her in the rack because there's like concerns for me. As far as carrying it, it's like really awkward and heavy. But 2, the bigger one is that on car rides, she doesn't ever seem to really be that excited to be in the car. And I'm always concerned about, well, obviously safety. Is she in the seat properly? Is her,
Neck supported,
and is she like comfortable safety-wise? And then 2, are there things that I can do that help her be more comfortable, either the way I engage with her when I'm in the car, especially if I'm driving and can't really do anything for her
right.
if she's upset, or just, ways I can physically just make her more comfortable in the car. So, or when she afterwards gets out of the car, if there's things I should be doing with her if she's been in the car, like on a longer trip or something like that. So that's a lot of different things.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of those are things you
yeah, well, we can cover
wanted to talk about today.
We can cover all those, but
Yeah.
Number one, this is great that you're not keeping her in the car seat when she's not needing to be in the car seat, right?
Yeah,
So this is one of the things that I see a lot is babies in the car seat, they fall asleep, mom doesn't want to, parents don't want to wake the baby up, they just unclick it and then they put it into the stroller and then they put it into the shopping cart or whatever.
Right.
So baby's really spending a lot of time in the car seat. And they're missing out on that connection time with mom, with the baby wearing, right? And they're also missing out on that proprioceptive opportunity as mom moves and, and just all the biofeedback with the heart and the breathing and all that self-regulation. So number one, that's really great that, you're doing it for your ergonomics, right? You're like, because of my back is what you first said, but, maybe it's also intuitively like, I want the baby.
To have her with me rather than there, sure.
Yeah, so, intuition gives us, we have a lot of wisdom just in our intuition as parents and especially mamas, right? Yeah. And, it feels unnatural. I mean, I have 4 babies that are now 4 adults, but it never felt intuitively comfy to take the baby off of me and put them into a 5-point harness strap bucket where they're restricted, restrained, and, they can barely move and see. Yeah, so that's why, I love to talk about this because it's so hard, especially, parents who are really aware of attachment parenting and just wanting that baby close to us and then having to separate the baby from us, especially in those first months and those days out of the hospital, which I know, Kate, you're going to talk about that a little bit. And so how do we navigate that? And how do we have our baby navigate that, especially if we're feeling like, this doesn't feel so great to, put you behind and I can't reach you and I'm focusing here and you're all strapped up and you're buckled and you're unhappy. And it's like, how do we feel as we're, we're like, we just have to go, and having, multiple children. How do you navigate that the best that you can? So one of the things that I like to do is, especially babies who are really resistant, like they have, a negative association with the car seat, is just to prepare them as much as we can with self-regulating for us, right? And us being calm and just say, we're gonna get in the car seat. I know you hate it in there and I don't like that you have to be in there, but that's where we need to be for our ride so you can be safe. And just kind of letting them know that you understand, like, it's not a fun place to be, but it's temporary and we're only gonna be driving for 10 minutes or whatever it is, and then I'm gonna take you out and I'm gonna hold you again. So just like, especially if you only have the one baby, if the baby has siblings and friends in the car, depending on the dynamic and the relationship, I loved having, the siblings sitting there and playing and touching and giving baby attention, and they're instinctually, want to give comfort to their siblings typically. So that's a nice thing. Sometimes parents are worried, and you got to figure out what your setup is, depending on the dynamic. Yeah. But just like finding that voice to help give them, some level of calm and comfort, that you understand how they're feeling. Eye contact, so having them set up so they can see your eyes. I liked singing songs that they were familiar with. If you had songs from in utero, that can help with soothing, just to have their body just relax a bit. So those are just all like, kind of maybe the psycho-emotional stuff that we're navigating as we're kind of putting our baby into something that, parents are like, why doesn't she like it in there? And it's like, I think about myself, would I want to be constrained and, 5 harness and like barely able to move? No, none of us would, right? So just to have compassion for our babies, that they're having to do something that doesn't really feel instinctually correct, right? But of course it's safe. And yeah, just kind of looking at how the car seats are set up, what they're able to see in their periphery. Like, so you have this handle here, so getting the handle, backed out of the way so the baby can have full vision. I know we have these pillows in here, which are really great for that head tilt and head tip, but it also can restrict them from being able to feel like they can have free movement. So short rides, not a big deal, but if you have a long car ride, just having awareness that they're not able to move that much, and so having those like regularly scheduled, pauses where we take baby out and we move and we talk, and of course, the nursing, we're going to need to do that anyway if they're nursing babies. But I like the ones that, they can have some level of peripheral vision and be set up so they can look out the window. Some babies, that might be overstimulating, so to also kind of have awareness, maybe it's too much, and like having the little blind that kind of softens that light can be helpful. Sometimes my kids I was, trained as a Waldorf parent, so one of the things that they recommend at this infant stage is those colors of pinks and roses. So you can get like a gauze blanket and just bring it over the car seat too. Can help just bring that comfiness in instead of like, might be too much stimulation, because we've got the dashboard and the signals and everything making noise. So that can kind of mute and soften the baby's experience in the car seat. And you can do that too with grocery shopping, and if you're not wearing the baby, or just having a shawl over that's kind of helps to soften the experience in these high, fluorescent lights and beeping, codes at the register. So yeah, just getting baby in and out as much as possible, and not keeping her or him in there. One of the things I've noticed sometimes with these car seats, looking at the car seat situation, is the padding. This one feels like the padding is pretty good all the way down actually to the low back, and a little bit hard on the bottom. So some car seats, the foam will only be, like the dense foam for protection will only be as high or low as they think the head will land on a car seat. And so then you have like this space here down to the car seat, to the plastic, where there's nothing there. So we talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, we looked at car seats last time, and it seemed like some car seats, there's like hard plastic. Like yours doesn't. You've got nice cushion.
Yeah, so this has nice cushion in it, but sometimes it'll just be the fabric, and so the baby's actually sitting on hard plastic. And then if there's a change, right, in that foam density, depending on where it lands on the spine, if you've got foam here and none here, so what's happening is, you're getting this, our little spinous is pushing up against that hard plastic, and depending on where that level is on the spine could be affecting, the phrenic nerve, right? So it can affect digestion, can affect, reflux, it can affect all kinds of things, because we think about how those nerves service all of our organs and tissues there. So having that smooth continuity of the padding underneath the cover is important. noticing if your baby does have, you know, a head tilt or restricted range of motion. Obviously, getting baby body work is going to be really important to help, you know, eliminate that or relieve that as much as possible. But what I've done is even used even like a cloth diaper or just a little burp cloth to roll up next to the baby, like if it didn't have these wings, that you could do that, or put it right behind the baby's neck so that they're not like this, they're actually able to be upright like this, if that makes sense. So I have had some babies that are just like really over like this, so trying to get that head up a little bit better by putting a little bit of a towel roll or support there. Can help with that ergonomically. Other things to think about, you know, obviously, you know, little dangly things can help keep them entertained. We want them to be comfortable, of course, but it's not natural for us to sit like that, you know, sitting back on our tailbone. So that can actually, you know, cause constipation, for example. We see that. So some of the things that you said, well, what can I do when I get baby out of the car seat? So one of the greatest things you can do is get them on that tummy, doing some tummy time, because they're in this, you know, curved position, flexion, and then, you know, you put them down and they can stretch and kind of open up their spine a bit. And then movement, just, you know, if they are crawling, or just kind of, you know, doing the knees into the chest to kind of work out whatever, you know, when we've fallen asleep in a certain position for a long time, we're like, ugh, you know, to help them kind of get unstuck. And then, you know, if they're not mobile yet, just kind of doing it for them and just kind of working the legs. And yeah, can I roll you onto your back just for a second? You're so cute. So she's happy in this position, but, you know, I wouldn't, just kind of getting some movement after sitting for a long period of time. Is that funny? Yeah, and if you notice, you know, as you're doing this with your baby, that one side's kind of locked up and not symmetrical, you know, checking into some body work, because of course, as a chiropractor, I'm always looking for symmetry of movement, but she feels good. Kate, you have something coming to mind that you want to add?
Yeah, so a couple things. One is, you said you didn't have this car seat before. You had others with...
I had just a regular convertible that can go forward and backward.
Because these things will whack out your shoulder pretty bad by carrying them. But on a lot of car seats, you can carry them. There usually is a little handle here, but yours doesn't have that.
Oh, okay.
So one of the things that I learned after I had babies is that car seats are often made for parents to put their arm through and then hold like this. This one's a little more challenging for that.
It's hard, and now that she's getting, I just tried this yesterday again, and she's getting too heavy, so I can't grip it enough. It sort of slides off.
Yeah. So, but some other car seats, they have a little forward piece here that the arm really easily can go over.
Okay.
And the balance is easier. The other thing that I've learned is that there can be the baby associating the car seat from the very first time they rode in a car seat. And for many parents, I don't think it's your story, for many parents, it's the ride home from the hospital.
Yeah, we didn't do it. She probably wasn't in the car seat for like a month and a half.
See, that's excellent. Maybe, I don't know if you had Letty and the other end Hawks at the hospital. I can't remember.
No,
all home births.
Reluctant car seat users.
They all were, even though they were home births? People?
Yeah, we didn't, they didn't, I wonder sometimes, like, is it nausea? I experienced car sickness in the car, or just they're facing backwards, it's disorienting. I know their vision is not great anyway, so maybe that isn't a factor, I think.
Well, often what we know is that sometimes the car seat can be associated with the first time they rode in the car seat.
Yeah.
And it can be the ride home from the hospital, it can be an emergency ride to a doctor's office, it can be whatever they associate. And so what we can do with babies is make repair and just say, oh, you don't like the car seat. I remember the first time we did this. Maybe I didn't prepare you well, or maybe we were going too fast, or maybe it was separated from me, and that must have been hard for you. and I'm sorry. And we say this in a very regulated, slow way, and let the baby participate and just say, yeah, that was really hard for me, and I didn't like that. And just see if you can hear the baby, and then just make the repair and say, I get it. Often when babies tell their story and we hear it, then they don't have to tell us again and again, which is like, I don't like the car seat. Don't do that to me. I remember when you did this before. It was too much. And so really trying to sort out what your baby's telling you about the car seat. That's one. The second thing is, like, often babies really, if they have a memory of being really held or pinned or, you know, not restricted in the manner, like in this restricted way, that memory will come up in their body too.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's a third trimester memory or an intrauterine constraint memory. I often find that some babies really love their car seat. Not all of them dislike it. And a lot of times they'll feel held, and they love the security of feeling held. It's not every baby. So
Right, some parents will put their babies in here to put them to sleep for a car ride, right?
Yeah,
They like the
that's
vibration
never worked for our
and the
family, but I
coziness.
know that can
Yeah.
be a great resource for some.
yeah. And then the last thing is, like, this is not for your babies, Madeline, but babies that have restricted airways because of tongue tie. There's some physiological impact riding backwards at that angle, the slight angle, which will create a feeling of airway restriction, and they'll get terrified. So the crying that a baby does that has airway restriction in the car seat riding backwards sounds like terror.
Yeah.
And for the parent, that's really hard and very confusing, because all we're doing is going from one place to another. There's nothing terrifying. It's just the fascial restriction in the mouth and the throat and even some parts of the shoulders can lead to restriction of air breathing.
Because in that case, it's not just a fear or a discomfort, it's an actual restriction.
It's an actual physiological, I'm having trouble breathing.
Yeah.
And that creates anxiety and fear, terror, and then they'll cry, and that also creates more impact physiologically, and that compounds the flooding of cortisol and all the things. So for a lot of parents, that's one of my intake questions is, how is the car seat for your baby? If there's a lot of confusion around, do you have a tongue tie? Is there a fascial constraint?
He's good. He's fine.
No.
He's fine. He's doing great.
Yeah, so those are the three things that I really wanted to add to the car seat restraint conversation. And mostly, babies are going to tell you their story. They're going to tell you their story about something. Our job is to listen and discern, what is that story? And if babies are like, don't put me in the car seat, see if we can put on your Sherlock Holmes hat, like be a detective, discern what's the story. If you guess the story, the baby will be like, yes, that's it. And then there'll be less need to tell you the story of why they resist. So, yeah, those are the three things I thought.
Paying attention to, experimenting. How does baby feel most comfortable, and how do they look when they're in the car seat? Do they look like they're in good alignment? Do they look like they're comfortable? And sometimes, also knowing when your baby's outgrown a car seat. Their legs could be, cutting off here if they're just, a long baby. So they might just be uncomfortable because they got all this pressure on the back of the leg, and then they've got this weight kind of pulling them down. So, or if you find that they're wanting to bring their knees up and get cross-legged, if they can do that, as they get older, just kind of looking at what are they doing with their hips. Is it the right size for them? Do they need a more roomy one? Do they need a more cozy one for more support? And armrests if they're falling asleep, just so that their joints and their limbs are being supported as they grow. I just remember remember being like having a lot of stresses with a crying baby, especially when I was nursing. It's like, you know, you get the letdown and you're like, ah, and then you're trying to focus on driving and you're trying to be safe. And I think one of my favorite things to do is just to, you know, yeah, you're driving with one hand on the wheel and one hand on your baby, and you're like, well, what is the safest thing to do, right? It's like, well, I'm more focused and I'm more calm and I can, you know, see where I'm going because my baby's not crying and screaming and I'm not as stressed. So, you know, you know, we have to, you know, figure those things out. If we can't just pull over and you're like getting frenzied and you can't focus on the road, you know, your peripheral vision is off. We start to get tunnel vision when we're stressed, right? You know, and sometimes you just got to pull over. You got to find a safe spot, and you got to take the baby out for both you and the baby, and you just need to have some contact time. You need to walk around, you know, move the body, and you know, and as they get older too, you know, it's like the kids need movement. We all need movement as humans. You know, we're not designed to sit in chairs, you know, all day long and for hours at a time, especially as a toddler. It's just our bodies weren't meant for that, and our curiosities are bigger than just, you know, sitting and taking in the world. We want to interact with it and engage with it.
So many factors you need to think about when you're buying a car seat, and now I know, like, one factor I hadn't thought about was the cushion for comfort. But is there a place that you recommend or that you know to go? Because online it's not easy to cross-check all these various things, and I certainly couldn't put a baby in a car seat online. And so once you've unboxed it, then it's yours. And, you know, it's like a whole thing. And like you said, it's expensive. It's wasteful to then have to get rid of a car seat. It's just this whole thing. So is there a place that people can try car seats, or even a website that sort of like reviews these things? I don't know.
I mean, I don't know what Costco's rules are. Okay. But I mean, you can always return stuff at Costco, and they usually have, you know,
Pretty
good quality stuff that has great reviews, it's popular, that doesn't get a lot of returns, and that's, you know, so they're going to try to pick something that doesn't, you know, come back. So that's just one, you know, Costco member suggestion.
My daughter hates the car seat. She always has. She's a little over 13 months now, and it's like 50-50. She's either screaming or she's okay. But I was going to ask, when somebody brings their kiddo to you guys and they say they hate the car seat, they're really upset, what are you guys looking for? That might be a loaded question, but...
Yeah. It's a perfect question.
Yeah, so the first thing I'll do is I just get a history, and I try to check to see if there's been any airway restriction, any fascial restriction. And then I'll ask a little bit more about what was that first car seat ride like, what happened there. And I'll teach about making repair for that. But then I also check for, muscle issues. Like I had one baby years ago, hated the car seat. And he reached down to pick the baby up out of the car seat, and I could immediately tell she had torticollis. So there's muscle shortening. Often babies will have their spot, and that spot is in their back and their shoulder or their neck. And if they're in the car seat, this is squinching, and they get headaches, they have chronic pain, nerve pinching. So I assess for muscle tightness, muscle and fascial restriction, not only in the head and neck, but in the hips.
Yeah, so I've been in practice for 25 years, pediatrics. So yeah, sometimes it's, checking the pelvis, adjusting the hips, and then they do great. Sometimes it's like a misalignment in the spine, and getting that addressed, then they're totally fine. Yeah.
But Hannah, you have a lot of wisdom. What have you tried with your daughter? Tell me what has helped.
I have tried to make it a positive experience, so a lot of talking and like, we're going to get in the car seat now. This is going to be fun. We do a lot of singing. We have a mirror that she likes. I try to save some of her favorite toys for the car. Now that she's older, we do a lot of snacks. I always said that my kids wouldn't eat in the car, but I pack extra snacks when we're in the car. And that's kind of what I've done so far. Yeah.
I just had a curiosity about from the perinatal work, the sequencing piece. Kate, especially in your experience, what you found, and also maybe particularly with this baby.
Well, I don't
There's-
know her sequence.
Uh-huh.
Well, I'll give my answer and then I have you answer your own question, Laura. What Laura's referring to is how what we know about how people experience life. They can have a sequence. There can be an intention. There can be a preparation to do something. There can be action, follow through, and then rest. And depends on where someone is in their sequence, they can have either had an interruption or some kind of overwhelming thing happen. So if you're in transitions, that's often where issues with sequencing will show up. So with parents, we often say, well, how is going out on an outing for you? And most parents will say, oh, they'll do this head gesture, oh, and they'll roll their eyes. It's so hard to get out the door. And that's what we call part of the preparation phase. You're in transition. I'll slow things way down. I'll ask them about the pattern. How is it for you? Often children that have issues with their sequence, you have to give them a lot of notice. Like, okay, we're going to go soon. We're going to go in 5 minutes. We're going to go in 10 minutes or whatever part of the preparation. And then really be able to see, like, where in their sequence is it going through the doorway? Is it going out? Is it getting in the car seat? Is it getting out of the car seat? Is there something during the actual outing from one place to another that's upsetting? I mean, there's a lot of things to track, as you can maybe tell. So often babies that have had interruptions in their sequencing for car seats, I can only imagine induction, for example, C-sections, emergency C-sections, getting stuckness early in the sequence, not at the end. I think that would be part of the resistance to car seat and getting in something to go somewhere. I would say that's a preparation phase, sequence interruption, or issue. Sometimes there can be a cord compression there or other kind of mechanical issue, has nothing to do, and nothing personal with anyone or anything. It just was. And that's part of the job of someone trained pre-perinatally to track that and to sort of see where in the sequence is it and make repair for that. And it's totally doable.
That reminded me, you know, our babies will be asleep when we put them in the car sometimes, or when we arrive at our destination and they're just so disoriented, like, I went to sleep, I was here, I woke up, and I'm in this place I wasn't expecting or never saw before. So, you know, to have compassion for that is just, you know, give them a chance to wake up and let them know where they are, or before they fall asleep. When you wake up, we're going to be, you know, so, you know, the older they are, or even as infants, we can give them that preparation, like you say, to where they're going to be when they wake up. Because, like, I would see babies come into my practice and they fell asleep in the car, they fell asleep, you know, somewhere on their journey to the office, and then they're asleep and they wake up and there's this person staring at them. So I always like to have, you know, mom be the first person they see when they wake up, or whoever the, you know, the parent is who's in the room, so that they know where they are, and or that they hear, you know, the parent's voice. So yeah, just, you know, giving comfort and orientation and context of knowing and appreciating, like, going to sleep one place and waking up somewhere else, you know, can be really, you know, unsettling.
Laura, did you want to add anything?
And that was great. I think my curiosity was also, you know, in addition to the sequence of what happened during the birth that might get repeated in everyday activities, is also the sequence of the first ride, like you're talking about. And that was just a new thought that I had. Yeah. Thank you.
So my question is really kind of more practical, and you were talking about the actual car seat and the fact that the padding can be bad at the bottom, and maybe there's something going on with the lower back hitting the plastic. Do you recommend trying to fix that in any way, or do you say go out and get a different car seat? What are your thoughts on that?
So, so what I would do in the office is I would try to put like a diaper underneath there just to have some continuity with it and let them know that, you know, it'd be best to have one continuous piece all the way through underneath. You know, the manufacturers don't want you changing anything, right? So, you know, giving the advice of get a whole new car seat, you know, some people can do that and some people can't. So, yes, they are expensive. So, I don't see any safety issues in parents, you know, putting extra padding underneath their bottom, right? So just this, making sure this area here is all covered. If the padding stops here, you know, let's put something in there. You may have to adjust the sizing of the straps because they're, you know, a little bit more forward all of a sudden. And see how that, you know, how that helps. I mean, the other thing is to put like a fuzzy blanket or something cushy underneath them inside the car seat. So I think they have like those, like the woolly liners that you can put under here. So that could be maybe a better modification that can move from one car seat to the next. So those are nice, the sheepskin that can go underneath, and that provides a lot less pressure, and it spreads it out a lot nicer, and it also helps with temperature regulation. That's another thing is temperature regulation, right? So babies can get really hot in here. It's like there's not a lot of airflow. So maybe even if you have like clip-on fan or just have some awareness, like that might be one of the issues. Babies get, like I've had parents say, my baby's like, they get totally sweaty in the car seat. So, you know, breathable fabric. So, you know, sheepskin would be nice, or maybe, you know, bamboo, or even just a terry cloth towel in the summer. You know, you just have to be careful about where fabric falls, and, you know, you don't want it to cover the baby's head and face, of course, and all that. But, you know, having it, you know, thinking about the fabrics and the materials, because these are all man-made materials, and they're plastic and, you know, nylon, polyester, and all that. And it's hard for skin to breathe. And then what is your baby wearing? Is your baby wearing breathable clothing, right? So, and, you know, taking off the hat, or, you know, just kind of noticing what can you do to help the baby be more temperature comfortable. Yeah. The other thing that I forgot to mention is the bassinet-style of car seat and stroller. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? So the flat, where the baby can be completely.
Not for car seat.
They have those,
Really?
or maybe they're in Europe only. But no,
Baby can lay flat.
yes,
I've never seen it.
yeah. So yeah, I'll have to look it up. Yeah.
I've never seen a car seat that's flat.
So they're very short-lived, of course, because the baby,
Yeah.
you know. But, you know, in those first months, if baby doesn't have to be, you know, in that flexion. Are you looking online? Yeah, bassinet-style car seat, and it may be that they're not legal in the U.S. I don't know, but I think I remember them. Yeah, when my kids were little. So I don't know if that's changed, but I'm pretty sure they're pretty popular in, you know, European countries. Is the bassinet-style car seat? Yeah, where the baby can lay flat.